Some say Wayne Pearson's crazy.
The worst thing to call somebody is crazy is dismissive. I don't understand this person, so they're crazy. These people are not crazy. They're strong people. Maybe the environment is a little sick.
Don't take somebody else's word. Tune in and judge for yourself. The views expressed. 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday on Spreaker.com.
Hi, this is Nick and Adam from That Radio Show. It's been said that we have the most unpredictable show on the web. Nick, would you agree?
Well, no, Adam. First we talk about headlines, then we go to sex, then to politics, and finally about an idiot crossing the road with a chicken on his head.
Come listen to That Radio Show at 11 p.m., 10 p.m. Central.
Unscripted, uncut, and always uncensored.
Talk radio will never be the same.
Talking about good evening. You're listening to the DELOACH Approach right here on WNLMradio.com. We want to welcome you to tonight's show. I love that music. It always gets me going. I'm Steve DELOACH, the host for the DELOACH Approach. We'll be introducing some others in just a few moments, but I want to remind you, you can now find the DELOACH Approach on several different places. Of course, you can always go to WNLMradio.com/player, and that will take you right to the live feed. You can also go to TuneIn Radio or TuneIn.com, and you can type in WNLM Radio, and it'll take you right to the live feed as well on TuneIn.com. There are going to be some updates to YouTube as well that will allow you to listen to segments of different radio shows. And we also are on Spreaker.com and on SoundCloud.com. And you can go there anytime and listen to a show. We have 2 of our shows on Spreaker right now that you can go in and listen to and be able to listen at any time using your mobile device, your cell phone, or whatever. It supports several different devices, and it's free. So you can listen to those shows at any time. Now, if you do listen, we hope you'll hit the like button. That tells the platform that we have listeners who are enjoying our content, and that's a very good thing. So we hope you'll do that as well. Well, as I said, I'm Steve DELOACH, host of the DELOACH Approach, and I have with me tonight my lovely co-host from Broadhead, Wisconsin, Lisa K. Hauser. Lisa, how are you tonight?
I'm just fine. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing great. Lisa's up in Wisconsin. I'm down in Georgetown, Guyana, where I'll be this week and next week, and then start my journey back home. Nick Larson is our producer tonight. He's up in Minnesota, and he's taking care of pushing all of the buttons and making sure that everything works, and we really, really, really do appreciate that. Now, as is normally the case, when we get started in this opening segment, we talk about those things that we don't have time to talk about. And boy, tonight, we have several things, so we're going to get right to it. Lisa, have you ever had jury duty?
I have been called for jury duty, but I have not been selected.
I have been called for jury duty, and I have not been selected. My wife, on the other hand, has been called several times. In fact, even to grand jury duty, and has been selected on many occasions. So she's the one that gets to do that for all of us. Now, our first story talks about jury duty. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, this story comes out of Texas, and it says that most of us, jury duty is a fairly, prosaic experience. You show up, you drink bad coffee, and you hope you don't get stuck on something like the O.J. Simpson trial. However, for one group of jurors at the Georgia L. Allen Senior Courts building in Dallas, things were a little different. Juror number 27 on their jury panel was a former U.S. president. I turned around, and he was seated right behind me and I said, I think I know that guy, said Joel Ehambe, one of the jurors told reporters. And so he did. It was former President George W. Bush. Then the judge introduced him and said it was an honor to have the former president of the United States in the court. He was laughing and talking, and it helped ease the tension. Bush reported for duty at George Eric Moya's court at about 9 a.m. While the Secret Service was stationed outside and had done its due diligence, most of the other jurors didn't even know what was going on until Bush walked into the room. They made it seem like it was an anonymous juror that never showed up, and then they brought him in, juror Sherry Coleman told reporters. She described the president as awesome and surprising. He was very personable, very friendly, just, hey, I'm here to serve. He asked questions and was very nice, Coleman said. I loved it. The former president wasn't selected, as all the slots were filled before they got to Bush. He was number 27 of a 35-member panel, and we only got through number 23, Judge Moyes told reporters. I know it's a hackneyed question, but it bears repeating. Can you ever see Barack Obama doing this? George W. Bush is what a real American president looks like, someone who believes in the sanctity of American institutions like jury duty and doesn't consider himself above them. So hats off to a real hero, our 43rd president, a man of the people. I think that's a great story. One we don't really have time to talk about, but we thought that was an important story to tell, that this is a president who actually believes in the process of law and the process that we have set in place for our process of law, and juries are part of that. And so when he received his jury summons, he showed up, and more of us should be doing that. I think we may have lost Steve, so I'm just going to keep going here. It looks like that there have been another story that we have coming up is that there will not be charges brought against Lieutenant Commander Tim White, the Navy officer who fired a sidearm in defense during the attack on the Navy Operations Support Center in Chattanooga, Tennessee. He will not face charges, it looks like. An official familiar with the investigation told Stars and Stripes on Wednesday. Excuse me.
Yeah, it looks like we're not, Steve's not on, and we're not able to get him back. So.
Well, we'll just keep trying. And in the meantime, or he may be trying to call us back. But I'll go ahead with this story in the meantime, Nick. So Lieutenant Commander White they were saying that he might be brought up on charges for having a sidearm, and this is something that the military has frowned on since I believe since the Clinton years. Says White was reported to be one of 2 service members carrying sidearms at the time of the attack, which could have led to charges. The Department of Defense prohibits all military personnel other than security forces from carrying arms while on base unless they are in a combat zone. The Navy is still investigating the shooting where a lone gunman attacked 2 separate military facilities. The shootings resulted in the death of 4 Marines and 1 sailor. Last week, the Navy countered reports that White would be charged, which spurred national backlash. At this time, we can confirm no service member has been charged with an offense, the Navy said in a statement. It also faced backlash. Nick, I need you to go to the DELOACH Approach page and let Steve know that I do see his message and that he is trying to get his computer back up.
Okay.
Thank you. It also faced a backlash over why troops at soft military targets such as recruiting centers, which are often in easy-to-reach places like shopping malls, were not allowed to carry weapons. And Secretary of Defense Ash Carter directed a review to determine how security at these types of facilities could be improved. Last week, the Navy said that he would not be charged, or countered reports that he would be charged, and people just came out of the woodwork, went on to send emails and letters and stand out in front of the recruiting stations all across the country to guard these stations, and frankly shamed the Pentagon when civilians came out to guard the recruiting stations. And so this rather tepid response at this time, we can confirm no service member has been charged with an offense, is I'm glad to see that, but it doesn't say that he will not be charged in the future. And I think that's something that we're going to need to keep an eye on, because the military, this is typical military doublespeak. To say at this time we can confirm no service member has been charged with an offense is not the same as saying at this time we can confirm that no service member will be charged with an offense. An entirely different situation altogether. So, in keeping with that thought, another story that came this week to our attention was that there is a situation that we talked about a few weeks ago, that the Obama administration has set into motion a way to possibly confiscate weapons from our senior citizens and our veterans if they have any possibility of having any kind of way that they can say that they're incompetent in any way. And one way they could say that they were incompetent is if they had someone help them fill out the paperwork for their VA papers or for their Social Security applications. And a gentleman in northern Idaho, in Priest Lake, Idaho, had this actually happen to him this week. And the story came out of Priest Lake. It says that North Idaho veteran John Arnold found himself in the middle of a political firestorm Thursday afternoon. The vet suffered a stroke and, under the Brady Handgun Act, was found to be mentally incompetent to own a firearm by Veterans Affairs. The Brady Handgun Act is a system for determining if prospective firearms buyers can buy that gun. Part of the Brady Act utilizes a system called the National Instant Crime Background Check System. It instantly alerts a seller if a potential buyer is a felon or has otherwise been flagged and can't legally buy a gun. The NICS is constantly upgraded with new people appearing on it all the time. A name can also be manually added in emergency situations by, for example, mental health care providers, police departments, or family members requesting placement of an individual into the NICS system. That is what happened in this case. John Arnold's name was added to the NICS list by a mental health professional. When the list was updated and his name showed up, he was in jeopardy of losing his weapons. Until Representative Heather Scott, Idaho Representative, State Representative Heather Scott, and many others stepped in. At one point, there were dozens of people in front of Arnold's home protesting what they called a violation of Arnold's Second Amendment rights. In fact, Bonner County Sheriff Darrell Wheeler also stood up for his rights. He told a Veterans Administration representative that his office would stop any inspections and attempt at weapon seizures. And approximately 1:30 p.m., the Veterans Administration announced that it would not be conducting an inspection of Arnold's home. And that's really good news. I thought what was really interesting about this story was not only did he have a state representative from Idaho standing in front of his house protesting, but he also had a state representative from Washington State, right across the border, standing in solidarity with them as well. And this is really wonderful to see that kind of support come out and be standing there with this young man, this veteran who certainly deserves to be treated better. And the reason why this happened was because apparently a mistake was made when a box was checked that said he had had help filling out his paperwork. And that was the only issue involved, was that he had had help filling out the paperwork after his stroke. Apparently this has now been resolved for this young man, and hopefully it will be a non-issue from now on for him. However, not every veteran has that kind of support. So we need to be paying attention to what's going on and watching for these backdoor kinds of confiscations that are happening or they are attempting to have happen. Now, the other big story that we had tonight in these during this time of stories that we don't have time to talk about is Steve and I heard a speech that Colonel Allen West made in Central Park, and we're just so incredibly moved by it that we wanted you to hear it. And it's about 6.5 minutes long. It's almost 7 minutes long, but he really gets to the meat of what's wrong with some of the things that the president has done with both the Iran the Iran treaty and with some of the president's actions after the Chattanooga shooting took place. So, Nick, if you have that clip, why don't you